The stars looked different from here. Ambassador Lee Hyunwoo stood at the window of the diplomatic ship Harmony's Edge and watched the alien sun grow larger. After 3 months of travel, they had finally reached Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Velthran Galactic Empire. "We're being scanned again," Captain Park Min-ho said from behind him. The captain's voice was calm, but Lee could hear the worry underneath. "That's the 5th time in the last hour." Lee turned away from the window. The bridge was small but efficient, built for peace talks rather than war. Earth's best engineers had designed every part of this ship to show humanity's peaceful intentions. No weapons, minimal shields, and a crew of only 30 people. "They want to make sure we're not a threat," Lee said. He smoothed down his formal diplomatic robes. The dark blue fabric was decorated with Earth's symbol, a simple circle representing their home planet. "Let them scan. We have nothing to hide." Dr. Kim Soo-jin looked up from her datapad. The cultural expert had spent years studying what little information Earth had about the Velthran Empire. Their scans showed typical paranoia for a dominant species. They've controlled this region of space for over 2,000 years. They're not used to new players. The communication system crackled to life. A harsh mechanical voice spoke in broken human language. "Earthship, you will follow designated path. No deviation allowed. Punishment for disobedience is destruction." Captain Park's jaw tightened. His hand moved unconsciously toward the emergency beacon that would signal the escort fleet waiting at the edge of the system. But Lee held up his hand for patience. "Understood, Nexus Control," Lee replied calmly. "We appreciate your guidance and look forward to productive discussions." 3 hours later, they docked at the massive space station orbiting Nexus Prime. The station was huge, easily 10 times larger than Earth's biggest space habitat. Thousands of ships moved in organized patterns around it like a mechanical dance. Lee's small team gathered in the airlock. Besides Dr. Kim, he had brought 2 security officers and a communications specialist. All of them looked nervous except for Lee himself. He had negotiated peace treaties on Earth for 20 years. He knew how to stay calm under pressure. "Remember," Lee told his team, "we're here to secure humanity's place in galactic society. Be respectful but firm. Show strength through confidence, not aggression." The airlock opened with a hiss. The Velthran delegation was waiting for them. Lee had seen pictures, but meeting them in person was still shocking. The Velthrans were tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like stone. Their eyes were completely black and they moved with mechanical precision. High Consul Vexthara stepped forward. She was the most powerful Velthran in this sector of space, responsible for over 50 star systems. When she spoke, her voice was like grinding metal. "So, the humans finally arrive. We have been curious about your species." Lee bowed in the formal style he had practiced. "High Consul, it is an honor to meet you. Earth sends its greetings and hopes for friendship between our peoples." Vexithara's black eyes studied him for a long moment. Then she turned and began walking down a corridor lined with armed guards. "Follow. We will discuss your future." The meeting hall was enormous. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above them, and the walls were covered with symbols of Velthran conquests. Hundreds of different alien artifacts hung like trophies, weapons, flags, and pieces of destroyed ships. Lee felt his stomach tighten as he recognized what he was seeing. This wasn't a museum of exploration. It was a collection of defeated enemies. "Please sit," Vexthara said, gesturing to a small table in the center of the vast room. She took her place across from Lee while dozens of other Velthrans arranged themselves in a circle around them. For the next 4 hours, they talked. Lee presented Earth's achievements, their art, science, and technology. He showed videos of human cities, explained their democratic government, and offered trade agreements that would benefit both species. Vexithara listened without expression. When Lee finished, she was quiet for several minutes. The silence stretched uncomfortably, while the other Velthrans whispered among themselves in their harsh language. Finally, Vexithara spoke. "Your presentation is interesting. We have made our decision about humanity's place in our empire." "Empire?" Lee asked carefully. "We were hoping to discuss a partnership between equals." A sound came from Vexithara's throat that might have been laughter. "Equals. Human, you misunderstand your situation. We do not have partnerships. We have subjects." She gestured, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed a document written in Velthran symbols with human translations below. This is your classification, Category 3 Species. You will be permitted to exist under our protection. Your military will be disbanded. Your government will report to Velthran administrators. Your people will work for the benefit of the Empire. Lee read the document carefully. His diplomatic training helped him keep his face neutral, but inside he was horrified. This wasn't a treaty, it was surrender terms. High Consul, Lee said slowly. I'm afraid this is not acceptable. Humanity values its independence. We came here seeking mutual cooperation, not subjugation. The whispers around the room grew louder and more agitated. Vexthara's black eyes narrowed. You refuse? She asked. Her voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. I propose we discuss alternatives that benefit both our peoples, Lee replied diplomatically. He activated his datapad and began pulling up Earth's technological achievements. Perhaps if you saw more of what humanity can offer as partners. Silence. Vexthara stood up so quickly her chair fell backward. You dare negotiate with us? You dare suggest that your primitive species has anything to offer the Empire? The armed guards around the room stepped forward. Lee's security officers moved to protect him, but they were vastly outnumbered. High Consul, please, Lee said, standing slowly with his hands visible and empty. There's no need for hostility. We can find a solution that... The solution is simple, Vexthara snarled. You will serve as an example to other species who might question Velthran authority. She barked an order in her own language. The guards raised their weapons, strange crystalline devices that hummed with energy. Lee felt his heart racing, but his voice remained steady. If you do this, you will make a grave mistake. You judge humanity by your own limitations. That will be your downfall. Dr. Kim grabbed his arm. Ambassador, please, just sign the document. We can renegotiate later, but Lee shook his head. He looked directly at Vexthara. My answer is no. Humanity will never kneel to tyranny. Vexthara's expression twisted with rage. Then humanity will learn the price of defiance. Guards, execute the human diplomat. Broadcast it across all Empire channels. Let every species see what happens to those who refuse our generosity. The energy weapons powered up with a rising whine. Lee closed his eyes and thought of Earth, blue skies, green forests, and 7 billion free human beings who were counting on him to do the right thing. The last thing he heard was Dr. Kim screaming his name. The last thing he thought was that humanity was stronger than these aliens could possibly imagine. Captain Park Min-ho watched the transmission with growing horror. His escort fleet hung in space at the edge of the Nexus system, hidden behind a moon where Velthran sensors couldn't detect them. The quantum communication relay had picked up the Empire's broadcast, and now he was seeing his friend die on the bridge of his command ship. The execution was brief, but brutal. Lee Hyunwoo faced his death with dignity, while High Consul Vexthara proclaimed humanity's fate to the galaxy. When it was over, Park slammed his fist against the wall so hard his knuckles split. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, we're receiving a direct message from the Velthrans. They demand we surrender immediately or be destroyed. Signal the fleet, Park said through gritted teeth. Emergency jump to Earth, maximum speed. The journey home took 18 hours using their fastest engines. Park spent every minute of it staring at the recording of Lee's final moments. His friend's last words echoed in his mind. You judge humanity by your own limitations. That will be your downfall. Earth Command was waiting when they arrived. President Yoon Sora herself met them at the orbital station, along with the most powerful people in human government. Park had never seen the president look so grim. Show me everything, she said without any greeting. They gathered in the secure briefing room while Park played the full recording. President Yoon watched without expression, but her hands gripped the table so tightly her knuckles went white. General Nam Tae-hyun cursed under his breath. Director Bae Young-min took careful notes. When the recording ended, the room was silent for a full minute. How many ships do they have? President Yoon asked finally. Intelligence estimates between 50 and 80,000 combat vessels across their empire. Director Bae replied. Their technology appears roughly equal to ours in most areas, but they have massive numerical superiority. What do they know about our capabilities? Very little. Our diplomatic mission used civilian technology only. They think we're still using chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. President Yoon stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth. The blue planet turned slowly below them, peaceful and beautiful. 7 billion people lived down there, unaware that their world had just been threatened with conquest. "General Nam," she said without turning around, "what's the status of Project Phoenix?" "All systems operational, ma'am. We have 47 stealth ships ready for deployment, with crews trained and standing by. The Sol Lancers have been running combat exercises for 6 months. The Quantum Strike Network? Fully deployed. We have weapon platforms hidden throughout the solar system. They're invisible to conventional sensors and packed with enough firepower to destroy a battle fleet." President Yoon turned back to face the room. She had been a military commander before entering politics, and now that experience showed in her eyes. "Dr. Shin, is the Nemesis program ready?" Dr. Shin Haiwan, the head scientist of Earth's most secret research project, nodded grimly. "We can deploy it within hours. But ma'am, once we use it, there's no going back. The galaxy will know exactly what humanity is capable of." "They killed our ambassador during a peace mission," President Yoon said coldly. "They broadcast his execution as entertainment. They've given us 30 days to surrender or face pacification." She paused. "I'd say they already know what we're capable of. They just don't understand it yet." She activated the secure communication system. Within minutes, screens around the room lit up with the faces of Earth's military commanders. Fleet Admiral An Juwan appeared from the secret Phoenix base on Mars. Commander Jang Ki-woo joined from the Sol Lancers training facility. Captain Oh Jungmin connected from her stealth ship patrol. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Yoon said, "you've all seen the recordings. Ambassador Lee Hyun-woo died because he refused to let humanity become slaves. The Velthran Empire thinks they can intimidate us into surrender because they believe we're primitive and weak." She looked at each face on the screens. "They're about to learn why that's a mistake. General Nam, initiate Operation Retribution. I want simultaneous strikes on 17 target locations within 48 hours. Show me what 20 years of secret military development can do." The next day, Earth transformed. Hidden factories that had been disguised as civilian facilities suddenly began producing weapons at maximum capacity. The Phoenix fleet launched from concealed bases throughout the solar system. Elite soldiers who had trained in secret for years received their final briefings. Commander Jang Ki-woo stood before his Sol Lancers in their hidden base inside an asteroid. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They had been enhanced with cybernetic implants, trained in zero-gravity combat, and equipped with the most advanced armor humanity had ever built. "Listen up," he said. "The aliens think humans are weak because we prefer diplomacy to war. They're about to discover that preferring peace doesn't mean we're not good at violence." Meanwhile, Fleet Admiral An Juwan prepared her Phoenix Squadron. The ships were marvels of human engineering, completely invisible to enemy sensors, armed with weapons that could crack planets, and fast enough to cross solar systems in days rather than months. "Remember," she told her captains, "we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species in the galaxy that's been enslaved by these monsters. Make Ambassador Lee's sacrifice count." Captain Oh Jungmin received special orders. Her stealth ship Silent Thunder was the fastest in the fleet, equipped with experimental phase shift technology that could make her temporarily exist between dimensions. Her mission was the most dangerous of all: rescue the surviving members of the diplomatic team from Nexus Prime itself. Dr. Shin Haiwan worked frantically in her laboratory, making final preparations for the Nemesis virus. It was a program designed to infiltrate Velthran computer systems and turn their own technology against them. She had never tested it on this scale, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Director Bae Young-min coordinated intelligence operations. His agents throughout human space began activating sleeper cells and preparing for the counterattack. Earth had been planning for this possibility for decades, ever since first contact with hostile aliens in the outer colonies. As the 48-hour deadline approached, President Yoon made one final decision. She opened a communication channel to the Velthran Empire and broadcast her response to their ultimatum. "High Consul Vexthara," she said, looking directly into the camera, "you executed our ambassador because he refused to let humanity kneel. You think this makes you strong? You think this makes us afraid?" She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "You're wrong on both counts. Ambassador Lee Hyun-woo died free, and his death has taught us something important. Some enemies can't be negotiated with. Some threats can't be ignored. Some injustices demand retribution. Her eyes hardened like steel. You wanted to judge humanity very well. Let us show you what we're truly made of. Let us show you what happens when you threaten our home and murder our people. The transmission ended. Throughout the solar system, hidden fleets began their final preparations. Humanity was about to go to war, and the galaxy was about to discover why humans had survived every threat their harsh planet had thrown at them. The age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human vengeance had begun. High Consul Vexthara stood in her war room on Nexus Prime, surrounded by holographic displays showing the vast Velthron fleet. 2 days had passed since the human deadline, and still no response from Earth. She was beginning to think the humans had decided to surrender after all. Any word from the primitive world? She asked her tactical advisor. Nothing, High Consul. Their communication networks are completely silent. Perhaps they are preparing their surrender documents. Vexthara made the grinding sound that passed for Velthran laughter. More likely they are trying to figure out how to build ships fast enough to mount a defense. Pathetic creatures. She was wrong. At that exact moment, 47 ships that didn't exist on any sensor screen were moving through Velthran's space like ghosts. The Phoenix fleet had spent 3 days traveling to 17 different target locations, using technology the Empire had never seen before. Captain Oh Young-min piloted her ship Silent Thunder through the outer defenses of Nexus Prime itself. Her phase shift drive allowed her to slip between dimensions, making her completely invisible to Velthran detection systems. The alien guards never saw her coming. 3,000 light-years away, Fleet Admiral An Ju-wan led Phoenix Squadron toward the Velthran 7th Fleet's forward base at Kepler Station. The massive military complex housed over 200 enemy warships and was considered impregnable. The Velthrans were about to learn how wrong they could be. All ships, report status, Admiral An said over the secure channel. Phoenix 2 ready to engage. Phoenix 3, weapons charged. Phoenix 4 standing by. One by one, her 12 ships confirmed their readiness. Each vessel carried enough firepower to level a continent, and their stealth technology made them completely invisible until they chose to attack. Begin the operation, Admiral An ordered. Meanwhile, Commander Jiang Qiwu and his Soul Lancers had infiltrated a Velthran weapons manufacturing world called Forge Prime. The planet's massive factories produced the energy weapons and armor used throughout the Empire. Destroying it would cripple their military production for years. Jiang and his team moved through the facility's ventilation systems like deadly shadows. Their enhanced bodies allowed them to survive in the toxic atmosphere, and their cybernetic implants let them communicate silently through thought alone. Team Alpha in position, Jiang whispered into his comm unit team. Beta ready, came the reply from Lieutenant Kang Mi-young. Team Gamma standing by, reported Sergeant Lim. Do-hyun. They had planted explosive charges throughout the complex's core systems. In 10 minutes, Forge Prime would cease to exist. Back on Nexus Prime, Captain O had successfully infiltrated the maximum security prison where Dr. Kim Soo-jin and the other human survivors were being held. The Velthran guards never saw her coming. She moved through their defenses like a ghost, her phase shift technology allowing her to walk through walls when necessary. She found Dr. Kim in a cell deep underground, along with the 2 human security officers who had survived the diplomatic massacre. They were injured but alive, Captain O, Dr. Kim whispered in disbelief. How did you get here? Earth sent me to bring you home, O replied, cutting through the energy bars with a molecular cutter. Can you walk? I think so, but the guards already taken care of. We need to move quickly. On 17 different worlds throughout Velthran space, similar scenes were playing out. Human forces struck with surgical precision at military bases, weapons factories, communication centers, and supply depots. The attacks were perfectly coordinated, hitting all targets simultaneously. At Kepler Station, Admiral An's Phoenix Squadron revealed themselves all at once. 12 ships materialized out of empty space and opened fire with weapons the Velthrans had never encountered before. Quantum torpedo launchers turned their massive battleships into expanding clouds of plasma. Phase cannons cut through their shields like paper. The Velthran 7th Fleet tried to fight back, but they couldn't target enemies they couldn't see. The human ships would appear, fire devastating volleys, then vanish back into stealth mode before return fire could reach them. Impossible, the Velthran fleet commander screamed. How are they doing this? His question was answered when a quantum torpedo struck his flagship's bridge. Kepler Station and its entire defensive fleet were destroyed in less than 30 minutes. On Forge Prime, Commander Zhang's charges detonated in perfect sequence. The massive weapons factories collapsed in a chain reaction of explosions that could be seen from orbit. Millions of weapons and armor suits that would never be used against human civilians disappeared in pillars of fire. The Sol Lancers extracted safely, leaving behind a world that would take decades to rebuild. Dr. Shin's Nemesis virus activated across Velthran computer networks simultaneously. The malicious program had been inserted by human agents over several months, lying dormant until this moment. Now it spread through their communication systems like digital cancer. Velthran ships suddenly found their weapons turning on each other. Their communication networks broadcast human propaganda instead of military orders. Their navigation systems began plotting courses to random coordinates, stranding entire fleets in empty space. The virus was particularly effective because it was designed to exploit the Velthran's rigid hierarchical communication protocols. The more centralized their command structure, the faster the virus spread. High Consul Vexthara watched her empire's defenses crumble on the tactical displays. In the space of 1 hour, humanity had accomplished what should have taken months of conventional warfare. Status report, she screamed at her cowering advisors. 17 major installations destroyed or severely damaged, came the terrified reply. The 7th Fleet has been completely eliminated. Our computer networks are compromised. We're receiving reports of impossible stealth technology and weapons that don't exist. It's not possible. The humans don't have this capability. Before anyone could answer, Captain Oh Jungmin's voice echoed through the war room's communication system. Somehow she had tapped into their supposedly secure network. High Consul Vexthara, Captain Oh said calmly. This is Captain Oh Jungmin of the Earthship Silent Thunder. I'm speaking to you from the bridge of your own flagship, which I have just disabled. Vexthara spun around to see several of her bridge crew floating unconscious. Somehow, impossibly, a human had infiltrated the most secure location in the Empire without being detected. You wanted to judge humanity, Captain O continued. You executed our ambassador because you thought we were weak. You threatened our world because you believed we couldn't fight back. The image of a human woman appeared on the main screen. Captain O's face, calm and determined. Ambassador Li Hyunwoo told you that you were judging us by your own limitations. He warned you that would be your downfall. You should have listened. Vexthara reached for her weapon but found her hand wouldn't obey her commands. Some kind of neural disruptor was affecting her motor functions. This is just the beginning, Captain O said. Earth has decided that your empire represents a threat to every free species in the galaxy. We're going to do something about that. The transmission cut out, leaving Vexthara alone with her terror and the growing realization that she had made a catastrophic mistake. Throughout the Empire, the message was being broadcast on every communication channel. Humanity had revealed its true capabilities, and the galaxy's balance of power had just shifted forever. The Velthran Empire mobilized for war like a giant beast awakening from sleep. High Consul Vexthara called upon fleets from across 3,000 star systems, demanding that every available warship converge on human space. She would crush these upstart humans with overwhelming force and make their defeat a lesson to the galaxy. But War Council leader Kim Woo-sung had anticipated this response. From his command center deep beneath Earth's surface, he coordinated humanity's next phase of operations while the enemy fleet gathered. They're doing exactly what we expected, Kim told his staff as they watched enemy movements on the tactical display, massing their forces for a traditional fleet engagement. They still don't understand what kind of war we're fighting. The Velthran strategy was simple and brutal. Gather enough ships to outnumber any possible human defense, then sweep through Earth's solar system, destroying everything in their path. Their intelligence estimated humanity might have a few hundred ships at most. They were bringing 50,000. They were also bringing them exactly where Kim wanted them. Captain Ryu Hai-jin stood on the bridge of the experimental ship Vengeance Protocol, watching the massive enemy fleet approach through normal space. The Velthrans had learned to be cautious about stealth attacks, so they were scanning constantly and traveling in tight defensive formations. It wouldn't help them. All ships. Report status, Captain Ryu said into his communicator. Strike Force Alpha ready, came the reply from Commander Zhang Ki-woo, now commanding a squadron of upgraded, saw Lancer ship's Ghost Division standing by, reported Major Song Ji-won from her position inside Valthran space. Nemesis. Batteries charged and ready, announced Engineer Lee Da-som from her hidden research station. The human fleet numbered only 300 ships, but each one represented technology decades ahead of anything the Valthrans possessed. More importantly, they weren't planning to fight the kind of battle the enemy expected. The first surprise came when the Valthran fleet reached the outer edge of the solar system. Their sensors detected what appeared to be a standard defensive line, human ships arranged in traditional battle formation, waiting to fight and die heroically for their homeworld. High Admiral Krathvar, commanding the Valthran forces, was almost disappointed. Is this all they can manage? A few hundred primitive vessels. He ordered his fleet to advance in a massive wall of firepower that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. Victory would be swift and absolute. The human ships opened fire first, their weapons reaching across impossible distances to strike the advancing enemy. But instead of the kinetic projectiles or energy beams the Valthrans expected, strange new weapons began tearing through their formations. Phase cannons fired bursts of energy that existed partially outside normal space, bypassing shields entirely. Quantum disruptors created localized tears in reality that swallowed entire ships. Neural scramblers broadcast signals that drove Valthran crews insane, turning them against each other. But the real surprise came when High Admiral Krathvar ordered a full assault, expecting to overwhelm the human defenses through sheer numbers. His massive fleet accelerated toward Earth's position. Ready to end the war in one decisive battle, the human ships simply vanished. Every single vessel in the defensive line activated stealth systems simultaneously, disappearing from Valthran sensors as if they had never existed. The massive enemy fleet found itself firing at empty space while invisible opponents struck from all directions. Impossible, Krathvar screamed. They can't all be invisible. But they were. Captain Ryu had been testing phase shift technology that allowed his entire fleet to exist between dimensions, visible only when they chose to attack. The Valthrans were fighting ghosts. Worse was coming. Major Song Ji-won's teams had spent months infiltrating Valthran client species throughout the Empire, spreading weapons and information about human intentions. As the main fleet advanced on Earth, rebellions erupted on hundreds of worlds. The Krillian Confederacy, enslaved by the Valthrans for 8 centuries, suddenly rose up with human-supplied weapons. The Thek mining colonies declared independence and began destroying Valthran supply ships. The Zellan Republic announced they were switching sides and joining humanity. Engineer Lee Da-som activated the next phase of the Nemesis virus from her hidden base on Mars. The new version didn't just disrupt Valthran computer systems, it turned their own technology against them completely. Valthran warships found their engines propelling them in random directions. Their weapon systems began targeting their own fleet instead of human ships. Their life support systems started producing toxic gases instead of breathable air. The virus spread through their quantum communication networks faster than they could contain it. Within hours, half the enemy fleet was crippled by their own corrupted systems. Dr. Kim Soo-jin, recovered from her imprisonment and now leading Earth's intelligence operations, coordinated the psychological warfare campaign. Using her knowledge of Valthran culture, she crafted messages that played on their deepest fears and social weaknesses. The humans are everywhere, the broadcast said in perfect Valthran language. They can become invisible. They can turn your own weapons against you. They can read your thoughts and predict your actions. Surrender now, or watch your empire burn. The propaganda was devastatingly effective because it was mostly true. Human forces struck from nowhere, disappeared before retaliation was possible, and seemed to anticipate every Valthran strategy. High Admiral Krathvar tried desperately to maintain fleet cohesion, but his forces were disintegrating. Ships defected to the human side. Others fled back to their home systems. Many simply stopped responding to orders as their crews succumbed to terror. How? He demanded of his tactical officers. How are they doing this to us? The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Oh Jung-min materialized on his bridge, her phase shift technology allowing her to appear directly behind his command chair. Simple, she said calmly. You thought war was about having the biggest fleet and the most firepower. Humans learned long ago that war is about adaptation, innovation, and understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves. Krathvar spun around, reaching for his weapon, but found himself paralyzed by the same neural disruptor that had affected High Consul Vexithara. Your species has been dominant for so long. You forgot how to fight a real war, Captain O continued. You crush opposition through brute force. You maintain control through fear. You've never faced an enemy that was smarter, faster, and more creative than you are. She gestured toward the tactical display, which showed the complete collapse of Valthran battle formations. We don't need to match your numbers. We just need to make your numbers irrelevant. The final phase began when Captain Ryu's Vengeance Protocol revealed its true purpose. The ship wasn't just a warship, it was a mobile factory, equipped with matter converters and self-replicating manufacturing systems. While the Valthran fleet struggled with invisible enemies and corrupted technology, the Vengeance Protocol began producing hundreds of new human ships from the raw materials of destroyed enemy vessels. Every Valthran ship that fell became resources for Earth's war machine. Within days, the massive enemy fleet that had come to conquer humanity was reduced to scattered groups of survivors fleeing in panic. The rebellion of client species spread throughout the Empire. Valthran control began crumbling as world after world declared independence. War Council leader Kim watched the tactical displays from his command center and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The enemy had brought their entire military force to crush humanity, and humanity had turned that strength into weakness. Status report, he requested. Enemy fleet strength down to 12% of original force, came the reply. Rebel activity confirmed on over 400 worlds. Valthran communication network 70% compromised. Their industrial capacity has dropped by half. Kim nodded grimly. Signal all commands. Begin Phase 3 operations. It's time to end this war permanently. The galaxy watched in shock as the supposedly primitive humans not only survived the Valthran assault, but turned it into a complete victory. The empire that had dominated space for 2 millennia was collapsing under the weight of its own arrogance, and humanity was just getting started. Supreme Commander Park Subin stood in the war room aboard the flagship Ambassador's Vengeance, watching the final preparations for Operation Judgment Day. Around him, the greatest military minds in human space coordinated the assault that would end the Valthran Empire forever. The past month had been a series of cascading victories. Humanity's unconventional warfare had shattered Valthran military power across the galaxy. Rebel species were establishing independent governments with human support. The Empire's economy had collapsed as supply lines were cut and industrial worlds liberated, but High Consul Vexithara still controlled Nexus Prime, the symbolic heart of Valthran power. As long as she ruled from the Empire's capital, other species might still fear Valthran revenge. Earth had decided that fear needed to die permanently. Final fleet positions confirmed, reported Captain Han Boram from the navigation station. All strike groups are in position around Nexus Prime. Park looked at the tactical display showing the enemy world. The planet was surrounded by the largest defensive network in Valthran history. Millions of automated weapons platforms, energy shields that could deflect planetary bombardment, and the remnants of their most elite fleet. It wouldn't be enough. Dr. Kwan, Park said to the scientist at his side, are the disruptor systems ready? Dr. Kwan Jamin nodded grimly. The quantum field generators are charging now. Once activated, they'll permanently disable all Valthran military technology within 100 light years. Their weapons, ships, everything will become useless scrap metal. The technology represented humanity's final solution to the Valthran threat. Instead of simply defeating them, Earth had decided to ensure they could never wage war again. It was a merciful alternative to genocide, but it would end their empire forever. What about civilian casualties? Park asked. The disruptors only affect military-grade systems. Their cities, transportation, and life support will be unaffected, but they'll be reduced to a pre-space civilization overnight. Park considered this for a moment. The Valthrans had threatened to enslave humanity and murdered Earth's ambassador during peace negotiations. They had ruled their empire through terror and oppression for 2,000 years. Perhaps this was exactly the fate they deserved. Begin the operation, he ordered. The assault on Nexus Prime began with surgical strikes by the Sol Lancers. Sergeant Lim Do-hyun led the executioner squad, an elite unit specifically trained to capture High Consul Vexithara alive. They needed her to formally surrender the Empire and validate the new galactic order. Lim's team used the newest, phase shift technology to infiltrate the planet's surface directly through its defensive shields. Their powered armor allowed them to survive in any environment, and their enhanced reflexes made them nearly impossible to stop. Team Alpha, secure the outer perimeter, Lim ordered as his soldiers materialized in the capital complex. Team Beta, disable the communication arrays. Team Gamma, with me. We're going after the target. The Valthran guards never stood a chance. Human soldiers moved like shadows through their defenses, using weapons and technology that seemed like magic to the Empire's troops. Within 2 hours, Sergeant Lim stood outside the High Consul's personal chambers. Meanwhile, Captain Han Boram led the space battle from the bridge of Ambassador's Vengeance. The massive flagship was more than just a warship. It was a mobile courtroom equipped to hold the trial that would officially end Valthran rule. Enemy defensive. Platforms are firing, reported the tactical officer. Maintain phase shift protocols. Captain Han replied calmly. Don't let them target us. The human fleet danced through Nexus Prime's defenses like ghosts. Whenever the enemy weapons tried to lock onto them, the ships simply shifted between dimensions, becoming impossible to hit. But their return fire was devastatingly effective. Quantum torpedoes cracked through energy shields that had protected the capital for centuries. Phase cannons cut defensive platforms in half. Neural scramblers turned the remaining Valthran fleet against each other, in the final throes of their empire's collapse. Dr. Quan activated the quantum disruptor network right on schedule. Invisible fields spread outward from hidden generators, washing over every piece of Valthran military technology in the system. Weapons powered down permanently. Warships became floating debris. Even personal sidearms stopped functioning. It's working, Dr. Quan reported. All military-grade Valthran technology within range has been permanently disabled. High Consul Vexithara felt her empire die around her as Sergeant Lim's team breached her final defenses. Her personal guards collapsed as their weapons stopped working. Her communication systems went dead. Even her automated defenses powered down one by one. It's over, Lim said as his soldiers surrounded her. High Consul Vexithara, you are under arrest for war crimes, genocide, and the murder of Earth's diplomatic mission. She tried to activate her personal weapon, but the quantum disruptors had neutralized it along with everything else. For the first time in her life, the most powerful Valthran in the galaxy was completely defenseless. Impossible, she whispered. You cannot do this to us. We are the rulers of space. We are the supreme species. You were, Lim replied. Now you're prisoners. 6 hours later, High Consul Vexithara stood in chains before a tribunal aboard Ambassador's Vengeance. The courtroom had been designed specifically for this moment, a place where the Empire's crimes could be formally judged and its power officially transferred to the liberated species. Supreme Commander Park presided over the proceedings, flanked by representatives from dozens of formerly enslaved worlds. The Krillian Confederacy was there, along with the Thek colonies and the Zellan Republic. For the first time in 2 millennia, the victims of Valthran oppression could speak freely. High Consul Vexithara, Park began, you are charged with ordering the execution of Earth's diplomatic mission, threatening humanity with conquest and maintaining a brutal empire built on the enslavement of other species. How do you plead? Vexithara stood silent, her black eyes burning with impotent rage. The defendant chooses not to enter a plea, Park continued. The court will consider this an admission of guilt. The trial lasted only 3 hours. The evidence was overwhelming. Recordings of Ambassador Lee's execution, documentation of the Empire's oppression, testimony from liberated species describing centuries of brutality. When it was over, Park delivered the sentence that would reshape the galaxy. The Valthran Empire is hereby dissolved. All former client species are declared free and independent. High Consul Vexithara and her war council are sentenced to life imprisonment on a colony world where they can contemplate their crimes. He paused, looking directly at the former ruler of 3,000 star systems. Your military technology has been permanently disabled. Your warships are scrap metal. Your weapons are useless. You will never again threaten another species with conquest or slavery. The final moment came when Park activated the memorial display, a holographic image of Ambassador Lee Hyunwoo in his formal diplomatic robes. This man came to you in peace, Park said to Vexithara. He offered friendship and cooperation between our species. You murdered him because you believed humans were weak and primitive. The image shifted to show Lee's final moments. His dignity in the face of death. His sacrifice taught us that some enemies cannot be reasoned with. Some threats must be eliminated permanently. Your empire is proof of that truth. Park turned to address the representatives of liberated worlds filling the courtroom. The Lee Hyun-woo Memorial Accords will guarantee that no species can ever again build an empire through conquest and oppression. Earth pledges to protect the independence of all free worlds and to prevent any future attempt at galactic domination. One by one, the former Velthron client species stepped forward to sign the new treaty. For the first time in galactic history, they were choosing their own destiny. 10 years later, Admiral Park Min-ho visited the Memorial Garden on Earth, where Ambassador Lee Hyun-woo was buried. The garden was peaceful, filled with plants and flowers from hundreds of different worlds, gifts from the species that Earth had helped liberate. The memorial inscription had been written by President Yoon herself. He sought peace through understanding. His death taught us that some enemies only understand strength. Both lessons guide us still. Park stood quietly for a long moment, remembering his friend who had died trying to prevent a war. Lee's sacrifice had ultimately brought peace to the galaxy, but at a cost that would never be forgotten. "We kept our promise," Park whispered to the memorial stone. "The galaxy is free." Above him, ships from dozens of different species traveled peacefully between the stars, protected by Earth's quiet strength and guided by the memory of a diplomat who had chosen to die free rather than live as a slave. The age of galactic empires was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun.